Cedar Rapids is a good example of an Army Corps of Engineers project for flood risk management. So along the way, particularly after some devastating floods in Iowa, the Army Corps of Engineers was asked to do a feasibility study in response to those floods in terms of how to modernize the infrastructure that currently exists or that previously existed in Cedar Rapids. So the Army Corps of Engineers led their own general investigation to improve the drainage at a federal scale. So it looks specifically at rivers within Cedar Rapids and how can we reduce the frequency of these rivers going out of bank and ultimately inundating a lot of people and preventing the disruption of economic activity and most importantly reducing the risk to people's lives. The Army Corps of Engineers, when they led their study, ultimately was limited based on a traditional benefit to cost ratio in terms of how much risk reduction it could propose with infrastructure. A lot of things have changed since the Army Corps of Engineers last led that study. We've had new rainfall data be published that explains that the risk profile is even a little more dynamic now than what was understood at the time. And the Army has updated, based on guidance from its political appointees, how to evaluate flood risk projects and opportunities. So the guidance is asking the Army Corps of Engineers to develop new ways to evaluate these projects so that there's a more equitable look across the entire study area to make sure nobody's really left behind. And so we're on the cusp of being able to look at projects from a broader comprehensive benefits framework rather than a straight structural risk reduction to propose infrastructure that'll be federally authorized for construction. And Section 203 allows the non-federal sponsor to lead that effort so that it doesn't get stymied, if you will, by precedents or legacy or lore of the Corps of Engineers. The Corps is a great agency, but often refers back to how we've always done things. And when we're trying to push the envelope based on updated statutes or emerging policy, typically the non-federal interest is the most open to explore those ideas. And that's why Section 203 has become such a useful tool in that respect. Travis, what do you think?
I think one piece to amplify on that is if you look at Cedar Rapids, the Corps of Engineers study resulted in a federal project that created levees around the east side of the city. And it left the local government developing the levees on the west side of the city or the west side of the river. And so with what Tim and I are here to talk about today is a method by which that non-federal interest may have had a little bit more local control and may have had a slightly different outcome. Still has to show federal interest, but they may have had a little bit more of their local objectives better incorporated than the path that they undertook then. But HDR has been part of Cedar Rapids since it started, and it's a great project. I would welcome anybody to come out there anytime.